The portability process is unchanged in the implementation of small area FMRs. Families participating in the HCV program may continue to move from one PHA to another under the standard terms of portability. When a family moves under portability, the receiving PHA, whose jurisdiction includes the area where the voucher family moves, is responsible for administering the family's voucher. The receiving PHA may either absorb the family into its own program or build the initial PHA for HAP and administrative costs. Nothing has changed. The policies of the receiving PHA determine how vouchers of porting families are administered. That means the receiving PHA's payment standards are used to determine the family subsidy calculation. If the receiving PHA uses small area FMRs, then a porting family's vouchers will be administered using small area FMRs, regardless of whether the family is porting from a designated small area FMR PHA or not. If the receiving PHA uses metro area FMRs, then the family's payment standard will be based on metro area FMRs, regardless of the payment standard policies of the initial PHA. Again, nothing has changed. However, it is important to be mindful of the financial impacts portability may have on an initial PHA that will be billed by the receiving PHA. Porting families that locate and choose units in the higher cost payment standard areas will most likely cost more to subsidize. The initial PHAs should be mindful of the potential impact of being billed for higher costs of participants locating into a high-cost zip code. If a large number of families port into high-cost small area FMRs, the per-unit cost will rise in cases where the receiving PHA chooses to bill the initial PHA. In cases where the receiving PHA chooses to bill the initial PHA will want to be mindful of the potential for such a cost impact.
If required, as a reasonable accommodation for a family that includes a person with a disability, any PHA implementing small area FMRs may, without HUD approval, establish an exception payment standard of up to and including 120% of the small area FMR. For example, a PHA with a small area FMR of $800 for a one-bedroom apartment could establish a payment standard between $720 and $880, or 90 to 110% of the small area FMR, without HUD approval. If needed as a reasonable accommodation for a family that includes a person with a disability, the payment standard could be increased to $960, or 120% of the small area FMR, without approval from HUD. PHAs may also request HUD approval to establish a payment standard that exceeds 120% of the small area FMR if needed as a reasonable accommodation for such a family. Note, however, that in all cases, applicable units must still meet reasonable rent requirements.